Less than 2 weeks until the election. Obviously, the biggest thing from the city is the city charter amendments. What is your opinion, and what do you want people to know?
Well, I think all of them were crafted, again, by thoughtful citizen input. This is a Charter Review Commission that represents the breadth and expertise in our community. And so I think they put in a lot of time and effort to understand the issues and put forward recommendations that reflect our community. I think they would all be good steps forward for the good governance of this city, and so I hope people vote for them.
I know before, when I interviewed you about the city charter amendments, the fire union had not come out with their opinion. Since then, obviously, they have made it very clear that they're not in support of removing the caps for the city manager. Did that come as a surprise to you at all?
No, I mean, look, people are entitled to their opinion, and the good thing is this will go to a vote, and that's how democracy works. I think that I put a considerable amount of weight into the deliberations of the Charter Review Commission and the recommendations of people around the community that we need to be able to compete for the best talent in the CEO position for our city, which is a 13, almost 14,000 members organization that needs to operate efficiently and effectively because it touches virtually every aspect of our lives. And so I would hate to see our own talent in this city have to go to another city to be able to compete for the best jobs. We have already seen people being recruited away from our city because, if you want the best talent, quite often you come to San Antonio, and we want to make sure that we can keep our talent here.
Mayor, speaking of talent, the new female fire chief, can you tell us a little bit about her and kind of we finally have one?
Well, that news is breaking. Just within the last couple of hours, the city manager made his decision known, and so I know that our city, our fire department is the best in the nation. They're fully accredited, and they have been an innovator for many years, and so I believe that hiring from within makes a lot of sense because we've got great people over there, and so I expect Valerie to thrive as our new city's fire chief, and very happy to get to know her in a new position, and look forward to her taking the reins of a great fire department and making it even better.
Mayor, pivoting a little bit, tell me about your time in office.
Wow, well, where do I start? I will tell you it's been an honor. It's been the honor and privilege of my life to be and work as a public servant in the city that I have fallen in love with. I've been in San Antonio now for almost 3 decades. I came here as a young, impressionable 18-year-old trying to figure out my future as a college student, and within 4 years I had fallen in love with this city. And so when I met my wife and she got a job here and we decided to come back and put our roots down, there's not a better place to be, and that only continues to be the case and increases each and every single day. We've seen the highest of highs and we've seen the lowest of lows. Every day that we work on something on behalf of the community, it reminds me why I love the city. We see people rallying together, helping our neighbors out, helping each other out. President Biden is often fond of saying there's nothing we can't accomplish when we work together. San Antonio exemplifies that ethos. I'm proud of the work that we've done. We've really focused on some foundational challenges here in the city. When I ran on that, we focused on that. It has been amplified as we've moved through and out of the pandemic, and I will be proud that we have led the city in the right direction, increased momentum to help communities thrive, and I'll be handing the baton off hopefully to someone who will accelerate that momentum.
What would you say is your biggest success?
Well, I think in my perspective, the accomplishment I'm most proud of is that we've changed the conversation here in San Antonio. When we decided as a community that we were going to focus on the deepest challenging issues of San Antonio, economic mobility, making sure that people in our community can thrive no matter their circumstances and no matter the historic inequities, we set out on a course to create a pathway to economic prosperity for every member of this community. And what that means is we have created a pathway to education and workforce so that everyone in this community has access to post-secondary education. We've expanded pre-K, but also we have created an Alamo Promise program now that allows every high school graduate in this city, in this county, to go to the best community college district in the country for free with the supports necessary to stay in school and ultimately get that certificate or that degree. We've created a pathway to retraining, reskilling, upskilling, to get adults who have been left behind in this economy retrained and skilled for high-wage careers and in-demand occupations. We have created a housing framework to align this entire community and all of the different organizations, departments, and public and private sector to ensure that we're achieving a vision of allowing everyone in this community to have a safe and affordable place to live. And then we are building a modern mass transportation system, a modern transportation system that has alternatives so that people who don't have a car have a way to get to school and to work and to play. People who don't want a car have the same. And that people who choose to have a car have safer streets to ride on. We're doing all those things, and I mentioned those three things specifically because at the intersection of transportation, housing, and education is economic mobility, what I define as the American dream. And so it is alive and well here in San Antonio. It is a result of us focusing in our efforts on those deep challenges, changing the conversation and making sure that everyone in the city can thrive. And we're doing those things because you have to have a solid foundation, you have to have the fundamentals in order to have all the nice things that this city ought to have, like a great airport, which we're now finally building, like the amenities that we would enjoy, great parks and libraries and opportunities to go see sports. All those things are secondary to establishing a foundation for thriving, and that is what I mentioned before. So I'm very proud of that work. It was changing the conversation and focusing in on economic mobility that I'm most proud of.
What do you wish you would have accomplished?
What do I wish we would have accomplished? I'd have to think about that. This city is dynamic, it's big, it's changing every single day. As much as we would love to see progress happen overnight, that's not the nature of this work. I will leave my time in office and I will leave this office proud that we turned the corner on a lot of issues and we are finally moving in the direction I think we ought to move. But we will never move as fast as I wish we could, simply because when you're talking about neighborhoods in this city that have been underinvested in for literally decades, generations, 60, 70 years, you can't undo all that damage and consequence overnight. When we adopted the equity framework, which is now putting resources where they're needed the most, places like the East Side and the West Side are getting more infrastructure support than they had in the past, and proportionally more in our city because they've fallen behind because of, in some cases, redlining. In other cases, just the way politics works, everybody gets an equal amount, but that's not how you would manage a city. So what I wish we could do is move faster. I wish construction projects would go faster. I wish we could overcome some of those inequities faster, because literally people in the city, families have been waiting generations. But we're moving in the right direction, and so my hope is that as the next administration takes office, they continue to move in the right direction, but also accelerate that momentum so we can continue to make progress.
Tell me about leading through COVID.
I had the opportunity to visit with a seminar of UTSA students about leading through the pandemic, along with County Judge Nelson Wolff the other night. We were there talking to students about this very topic. It was a great challenge, and one that tested a lot of our patience and capacities, but in the midst of that incredibly challenging time where there was no playbook, there was very little support from state and federal officials until later on, where we were literally trying to make sense of the uncertainty and the threat of what ultimately killed hundreds of thousands of Americans and thousands of our own neighbors here in San Antonio. Judge Wolff and I set out on a course, first establishing that our vision for how we would operate is, number one, we're trying to save lives, which we did. Number two, we were going to be transparent and honest with the public in doing so. And we were. We deferred to our public health officials on issues that we didn't have the expertise, and so we allowed our public health officials, our health experts, to guide us. And we also let people know when things were tough, and many days going over those reports, talking about the lives that were lost, and reminding people that these are, brothers and sisters and friends and family and mothers and fathers who are no longer with us. So just being clear and transparent and honest with the public was the second part. The third part, I would say, is that the judge and I made it our mission to do everything together, because we all know that we will thrive or not together amidst a crisis. We have to work together. So we wanted to model teamwork, and so everything that we did together. And that was also replicated by our organizations, the city and the county. So we modeled teamwork, which is really how San Antonio operates. So as we moved through the pandemic, it was a challenge, but it also reinforced the values of San Antonio, and I think in doing so, we fared better than most cities in this country because of that. And so I'm obviously it's not something we would ever want to go through again, but San Antonio in many ways was strengthened through the toughest times. And it also exposed all those fissures and fractures within our economic environment nationally. I talked about how we are tackling that agenda, but that was also a reckoning for our community, and we have made that a foundational moment into how we're going to come back from this, and we're still in the post-COVID era, how we're going to come back from this a stronger city than when we went in. And on that, I believe we are accomplishing.
One of the ways you communicated to the public was the 6:13 p.m. press conferences.
You remember the time.
What did people tell you about those?
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again.
What did people let you know about this consistent 6:13 p.m.?
People still talk about it. I mean, I still get stopped, and people still come up to me and say thank you for doing that. It was amidst a time of great uncertainty, and those 6:13 briefings were, number one, to get the essential information out to the public, and number two is it was an effort to give people a little bit of consistency in their lives. If you remember, everything was up in a state of upheaval, and so the judge and I being there in their living rooms every single night or in their radio was an effort to give people something to ground themselves. And then again, of course, accessing the experts, talking to our public health officials, giving our updates in terms of what was happening in the community and the guidance that they were giving us to make it through as a community. I think it brought us closer together, and it was one of those things that I think, if we're ever in another crisis moment, those are the kinds of things that we need to do as a community to stay together and get through it together.
If you were writing a letter to yourself that you could travel back in time and open on the first day of your mayorship, what would it say?
I think I would say, don't get caught up in the small stuff, which I think we've stuck to, and buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but keep going.
What's been the hardest part of this job?
The hardest part about this job, and I would say even in city council, is that it really takes time away from my family. There's no such thing as you mentioned. There's not really a traditional average family in America anymore. Everybody has different lives, and so trying to model your own life after some sort of expectation is difficult, but it is challenging because it is an entire family affair, and it takes time from some of the things that you would like to share, and that's tough. But I am so blessed because my son and my wife have been along on this journey for the last 12 years, and they have been not only the strength that I have to continue to do this work, they're also my inspiration. My son Jonah used to ask me when I would come home from work every day when I was a city councilman, have you made the world better? And there's not a better question to ask a public servant, whether you're doing city council work or whether you're the president of the United States. Your goal is to improve the lives of people around you and make the world a better place. And my son would remind me about that. And as he has gotten older, he asked me about the actual policies that we're dealing with, whether it's housing or environmental protection. He's interested in those things. And so they are my inspiration. But it is tough because you're constantly moving, and sometimes it's hard to schedule a dinner and make sure that you're there when you intend to be. But these aren't. I wouldn't trade the moment because it has been a blessing and an honor. And so, but that's hopefully the answer to your question.
How would you say this has affected your family? Your son Jonah was 5.
Yeah.
When you first were sworn in as a city council member.
Yeah. Well, so he has become very discerning about public policy. So he's become very passionate about some of the things that we're doing as a community, and so I think it's inspired him in many ways to see a life of public service. And my wife Erica has had her own career and has had opportunity to join me on some of these programs. She has a deep passion for small business development, particularly women-owned small business development, and so it's. I think it's been a life that we have enjoyed together, and we'll continue to appreciate.
Potentially 237 days until you leave as the former mayor of San Antonio. What does your future look like? Do you plan to continue in politics?
I plan to continue in public service, and I'm not sure what that looks like at this point, but I have enjoyed my time in community service in a lot of different respects, and there is a lot of work to do to continue to improve the lives of the members of our community. And so I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve. I don't know what that looks like yet, though. And my focus, again, this is how I got into politics, is I fell in love with the city, and I wanted it to be the kind of place where other people would fall in love with it as well, and people had opportunity, and that continues to drive me, and I'm going to do that to the very last day.
Do you think your future will continue to have some sort of relationship with the city?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is, my roots are firmly planted in San Antonio, and the way I look at it is there's a lot of different opportunities to serve, and whether you're in the public sector or the private sector or whatever your career path is, beyond your core job, you're also improving your community if you choose to, and so I plan to pursue that no matter where I am.
Mayor, what does San Antonio need to do now to be ready for the future?
I think we need to stay on course. I think we need to continue to make the investments in people that we are. And I mentioned those three pillars of economic mobility, and I think that's where our focus needs to be. Continue to ensure that people have a barrier-free access to education, recognizing that in order to live above poverty in the 21st century economy in this country, you need more than just a high school diploma. That is a fact. Whether that's a professional certification, some type of professional skill, or it's a degree, we need to make sure that people have access, unfettered access to post-secondary education. We need to continue to build out a modern transportation system in the city of San Antonio, and we need to continue to work to provide for a healthy housing ecosystem. If we can do those three things, we are going to be well on our way to what I believe we are becoming, and that is one of the best cities in America. There are other issues for sure, but focusing on those fundamentals will pave the way for all the other things that we want to do as a city.
Do you see a time when San Antonio will merge with Austin to be a larger city like Dallas-Fort Worth?
It's already happening in terms of the metropolitan area. The Metroplex is growing. I think the projections are from the demographers that what is now roughly 4.5, 5 million people will be upwards of 9 million along the corridor between the two cities by 2050. So the growth is already happening, the development is already happening, people are moving in, there's a great economic ecosystem here, supply chains are developing, so that Metroplex is already developing. Culturally, San Antonio and Austin are very different, distinct cities, so we will always have our identity and our unique qualities and character as a city of San Antonio, and Austin will as well, and that's a good thing. That is a very good thing. We want to be a great, unique city, as we always have been, that embraces our culture and historic heritage. We're never going to leave from that. But we can also benefit from the kind of sharing of ideas and resources that is naturally happening as the Metroplex grows. So I don't see it as kind of we're going to be shifting, all of a sudden this Metroplex is going to overtake San Antonio. Quite to the contrary, I think we're going to just become better versions of ourselves as cities, Austin and San Antonio.
Do you think we should stop adding then to the local airport and instead potentially maybe build one in between San Antonio and Austin? So
that was debated for literally decades, and that ship sailed in the 90s when Austin built Bergstrom. And so that was the essential question I asked the Air Service Development Committee to answer before we started on the redevelopment of the San Antonio International Airport. I asked them, for us to have the airport of the future, where should it be? Is it appropriate to build onto the airport where it is today? And the answer was, yes, it is. Because of the way the regional and federal air traffic works, We are serving customers that are unique. But the growth in the San Antonio International Airport is such that we can serve from that footprint and build the airport that we need that will help us to continue to see better service in San Antonio. And it will be a strategic competitive advantage because it's right in the heart of one of the largest cities in America. There's not many cities that can say that. So this will service our air needs, our air travel needs for the next several generations. And so it is where it needs to be, and it's only going to continue to improve.
Mayor, why doesn't San Antonio have a professional football team?
Well, in order to have those kinds of opportunities, look at what supports a professional football team. It's a wide and deep corporate base, which San Antonio has not had. It is also a big market and a strong financial foundation that supports season tickets and the rental of suites. All the things that support a professional franchise are the things that we are beginning to develop by ensuring that we have a high-skilled, well-paid workforce, by ensuring that when we're recruiting businesses to San Antonio, that their employees have places that they can live that are affordable, that are that meet the needs of the workforce, that San Antonians have the opportunity to get a great education. All the things that are fundamental to an economy are the things that would support additional professional sports franchises. And it's also a factor in the airport. We can't just snap our fingers and say, you know what, let's have a direct flight to Japan, Tokyo. Airlines are not going to support a flight to Tokyo unless there's a market for it. In the same way, so direct service and expanded air service is a trailing indicator of how healthy our economy is. And for years, we had not had that kind of market for air service. It's beginning to happen. You see new nonstops coming in. You see us finally launching transatlantic service and now having hundreds of passengers each time we fly back and forth. Air service is expanding. Those same fundamentals are what is necessary for us to have a wider interest from the professional sports world, and you're beginning to see that happen now as well. So, there have been dreams about having professional football in San Antonio for a long time. I acknowledge those. I'm a football fan as well. But it's not like we can go to the grocery store and just pick one off the shelf. It has to be supported by the market. What we have been doing to build up the fundamentals, the foundation that I talked about of our economy, are the things that will eventually make us attractive and competitive for sports franchises in the future. I don't want San Antonio to be used as leverage for additional sports teams to come and say they'd love to be here just only to get a better deal from where they are. That's been our history. I can tell you the moves that we're making economically, in the near future, when we start to have those conversations with professional sports teams, it won't be for leverage. It will be because we are the market that they want to be in, and those days are approaching very quickly.
Over the last decade or so, many big cities have tried to revitalize their downtown. Mm-hmm. I don't know any of them that have been necessarily successful, but what does that mean for San Antonio and its future?
Well, I would disagree with the idea that revitalization of downtowns in other cities in the country have not been successful. I've seen many. But here's the thing. We're not going to revitalize downtown just because it's what cities do. We're going to do it, and we have been doing it because it's what our residents want. It's what the community has said they want, and they've been saying it for decades. Ensuring that we have a healthy and stable housing market in downtown will help to ensure that employment comes back, that businesses were not going to put their their offices in a location where their employees can't access. And so we are working on making San Antonio's downtown a place where everyone can be, not just tourists, and that means building up housing. It means beautifying our Riverwalk, making it more walkable for people to walk, to restaurants and to employment. So we're making it nicer and more active for locals, and that's happening. But we're also seeing developments like UTSA come downtown, which is going to really amplify the activity and the livelihood of downtown. And so all that is happening because residents have expressed a desire, and we're starting to see momentum behind it. So I'm excited about downtown. It's an old downtown, and so there's a lot of history here, and we're seeing also the preservation of that history in different projects. But San Antonio, with the Riverwalk and with a World Heritage Site in the heart of our downtown, is unique in America. There's not another downtown like it. And so as we improve it, as we revitalize it, we want to make sure that it's better for locals. And in doing so, we're going to make it the best downtown in America.
Mayor, you're the first AAPI mayor. You're one of the longest sitting mayors in San Antonio. That's saying, what would you want people to remember you and your legacy as mayor by?
Well, that's a question that maybe other people should answer, but what I hope people will remember is that in my time as mayor, I looked out for all of us, and I loved this city, and I poured my heart into it. And in my time as a policymaker, the transformation that's occurred in terms of equity and ensuring that everyone has a seat at the table, and that the resources and initiatives and the programs that we're putting in place is to help ensure that San Antonio truly is a city for everyone, have been advanced. And so I'm a homer. I love this city. I had fallen in love with this city, and it only grows every single day, and I'm proud to serve.
Thank you so much. Anything I missed you'd like to add?
You covered a lot of ground, Rania. Thank you.
Thank you.